People of the world, welcome to Marketing as a Foreign Language. This the 292nd, 91st episode. Backstage, me and Ashwin were chilling, doing what you do, slaying the tech gremlins. The universe, as all of you are aware, is constantly putting us in front of experiences that are asking us, can you still love? Can you still be how about now? Can you be patient now? Are you still loving kindness now? Are you identified with the soul now? How about now? How about when there's an echo that we're trying to solve? And the answer, of course, is yes. It's all just vibration. We're going to get to the deepness with Ashwin today. And it's going to be a very, very exciting interview. So you're going to want to stay tuned. But I quickly want to share with you during the morning what I like to do, take a little bit of a walk, kind of get centered. And I was listening to a particular Buddhist speaker today, and she was talking about getting stuck in the airport and just the things that the mind likes to do. So let's say you have like a 7 o'clock flight and that flight gets pushed to 8. Well, the mind starts to do what the mind does, which is, oh, well, that means I'm going to get there around 11 and I'll be at the Portland airport at that time and other taxis. And how am I going to, and it just clings, it just reaches for the future. And it's like, what's going to happen to me now? This isn't what we had planned. And our relationship to those thoughts is a big deal. And in the world of entrepreneurship, selling anything, that sort of stuff, same thing happens. We think, oh, I'm going to make this sale. We get attached to this idea that the sale is going to close and it doesn't. Or we get attached to an idea that it couldn't close, but it could have. And we just play all these games. I don't have the answers, but I certainly enjoy talking to people who do. And Ashwin definitely does have the answers as a completely 100% enlightened being. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, the one and only Ashwin.
Hey, Kellen. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me, Kellen.
You know what? I always like to make that joke because it's like we're all on the path, and enlightenment to me is a pretty funny word. It's such a serious word because it is both serious and hilarious at the same time. But I do like to focus on just how funny it is sometimes. So you're in the business of enlightenment. You're taking the enlightenment from the sky, harnessing it via modern technology and turning that into the reduction of fossil fuels, i.e., pollution, spewing into the skies. And that is your Dharma. So can you explain what Dharma is, and then relate that to the vibrations of the universe and the sun in particular?
You put me in a spot there, haven't you? I mean, um, it, there's so much to cover. Dharma, in very simple terms, is your purpose, right? It's what you're called to do. Dharma could be even as simple as you could be living your daily material life, and then on a weekend you decide to go and feed the hungry, the feed the poor, or feed the underprivileged. That could be a dharma too. Your dharma could be wanting to be a millionaire and wanting to, be a hotshot investor on Wall Street. Dharma could be mean anything. But what's important here is that does that dharma that you have taken upon adds value to people who are not necessarily within, my family, my children, my wife or husband or whatever. But does that include a wider spectrum? Does that include your local neighborhood, the local community, the local town, the village, the city, the country? Um, because in India, we have a saying that, your dream must be so big that it involves at least 100 people that you don't know. And that's Dharma. And Dharma is that whatever you do must have a ripple effect. I wouldn't say must, but then I would say if it has a ripple effect that positively touches people's lives, that's good Dharma. you know and sort of tying that in with the overall, the cosmic, oneness or divinity that you talk about. And we were talking about this backstage, is that how often we go through the rigmaroles of life every day and we get detracted or distracted, and we think that, life is just this constant mundane sort of hamster wheel that we are constantly on, we tend to forget that we are a figment of that massive, big, beautiful, divine consciousness, and we're all beating to that beat, we're all walking to the beat of that one big cosmic heartbeat. And that's where it all ties in, is that you could have those personal dreams and aspirations about wanting to be successful and you know buy the next fancy car, the next big home, and go on that next nice lovely holiday or things like that. However, who are you being while you're going about trying to accomplish all that? Are you still in touch with your true self? Are you centered? You talked about that. How often do we sit in stillness and take a moment and understand that all of this is just one big play, and that we're all just players on a stage, as Shakespeare would say. The world is a stage after all, and you just play different roles. But while life comes at you, and it comes at you in waves, who are you being, in that ebb and flow? Can you stay centered? Can you touch in with your sovereign self, and and can you come from that place of not reacting but witnessing, and knowing that everything that's happening is not happening to you, but it's happening for you to really witness how diverse and magnanimous and eclectic and colorful life is.
I'm reminded of quite a few things listening to you. One of which is Ravana in the Ramayana, the villain. So Rama, the protagonist, which is an incarnation of God. Sita, his wife, is stolen away by the evil Ravana, and he has to go, on this epic quest involving Hanuman the monkey and a bunch of other things. But anyway, I was told that if Rama, which is this incarnation of God, kills Ravana, then Ravana is immediately enlightened. So he wants Rama to kill him, is what I was told. I don't know if that is true or not true. But this idea of, we in your particular Dharma, let's call it your profession, your walk in life, you're, I don't know, like you work for an oil company. You know what I mean? Like so I like to play this game where I go like good, not good, oil company, not oil company, because both things are happening simultaneously. So the oil company is the reason this light's on. It's the reason why this computer is running and the reason we're talking. I mean, the production of fossil fuels is like, it got humanity to this particular place. It's responsible for feeding and clothing so many people because, I don't know, the food that goes from the farm like lands, at the grocery store because of trucks. And those trucks aren't solar powered, dude, And so when people are like, stop line 3, I'm like, yes, and not yes, when it's so easy to take a side. And then some people in these sorts of traditions, Buddhism and Hinduism, and people in general, can struggle to kind of be like, how do I take a stand? Because I'm both the person that I am, but I'm also the opposition. Like, I know that I'm also the president of the oil company. That's me too. And I'm the truck driver transporting it, and I'm the person filling in my gas tank. I'm all of it, right? And yet I need to do something, right? Because you got to feed your family. There's that practicality aspect, which I like talking about. One of the reasons why I like you is because you have chosen to go into the solar profession, which comes with that sort of holy man glow about you, right? Because those that work in solar, it's like a modern, holy, spiritual profession, much more so than tobacco salesperson, say, or something like that. So I just think it's fascinating, and just on a personal level, for you in your particular incarnation, to go, you know what, I'm doing the solar thing. That's what I'm gonna do.
This is something that you've touched upon a very important thing here, Kellen, and I think when we talk about contradictions or the opposites, and that's where, and it all ties in with, if we were to look at everything in life through a lens, and we would arrive at conclusions based on our preconceived judgments about life, right? Now, But if you can look at life in its totality, in the way it is constantly vibrating and unfolding, and allow it to be just be, at all times, if you can remain in a place of an awareness, the witness, and not trying to pass a judgment just because something inside you didn't sit with what was happening outside of you. But can you allow it to just play out the way it is? Now, take for instance, in my case, yes, I'm a solar professional. I absolutely enjoy uh, doing what I do, but I'm also a huge motorsports fan. I mean, I've got posters of my favorite Formula One driver, Lewis Hamilton. You
Literally
know,
behind it. If you're
um,
listening on the
you know,
podcast, behind Ashwin is a lovely photo of, call it, 7 uh, gas
those seven
burner
cars
cars.
are the seven world titles of Lewis Hamilton. Now, will people say, "Oh, you work in the solar industry, but you watch motorsports where everybody is like running on gasoline?" But that's the thing, Kellen, and that's why what I'm trying to bring into my profession, what I do is I don't make people wrong for their choices. I don't make people wrong for their opinions. I don't make people wrong for their beliefs. I accept them at face value. I completely accept them. Now, in my case, I love cars. I was always around cars. Cars fascinate me. In fact, there's a running joke in my family that the first word I uttered when I was born was car and not ma or pa, right? So cars have always been part of my life. So when I live in Texas, everybody drives big, massive trucks. And just to let you know, when my wife and I moved here last October in 2020, I was never a big truck fan, but I love sports cars. I lived in Dubai. I've lived in the epitome of, over the top capitalism. I've driven fancy cars. I've lived a fancy life. And I was telling my wife that, hey, babe, I would love to own a nice Ford F-150 Raptor one day. And that's got probably a V8 or a V6 at this point of time. But the point is, when I go tell people about solar, about how it could save them money or how they could make an impact on the planet, I'm not going there reprimanding or admonishing or criticizing their lifestyle. It's like this: when I'm taking a walk in a park, or if I'm jogging, in the park, when I see rubbish on the ground, I would pick it up and I would make it a point to go throw it in the nearest trash bin. And it's that sense of responsibility. You can live your lifestyle, you can be who you want to be, you can have the aspiration to own a Lamborghini one day, and you could lust after these supercars and all of that. And you could also balance that with something that is going to do that little bit towards a greater good. We talked about Dharma, and that's what it is. Dharma doesn't have to be all tulips and daisies and all nice and dandy. It could also be, we all need a balance, you know, in our life. Humans are so we are gifted with this amazing ability to be. We wear so many colors. We wear so many hats. We are different every time we wake up in the morning. Throughout the day, we go through different churns of emotions. And we need to celebrate that. And we need to celebrate that diversity. We need to celebrate that eclecticness. So that's why I say, when you say, yes, I do solar, I am putting glass on people's roofs, and I'm telling them about how they do this bit for the environment and can save money, and still live their lifestyle. So that's where I come from. And I've noticed a lot of people in the solar industry are like, no, you're not driving an electric car. May you be sent to the pit of hell or whatever, you know, things like that. I'm not like that. I go and hang out at the Corvette Club, which happens once in 2 months here in Central Texas. I go and participate in other car meets, but who are you being at every moment of your life?
Yeah, I just think that the play is the mystery of the play that we find ourselves in, as you mentioned, Shakespeare's All the World's a Stage, is being open to being to laugh at our own biases and prejudices, which is to say that had we not had this conversation and you would have asked me, name, Ashwin's passions, I don't know what I would have said. And honestly, I'm not sure, but I probably wouldn't have said F1 cars in Texas. You know what I mean? And people go, well, I'm not prejudiced. I'm not racist. I'm not this. I'm not that. It's like, okay, just stop. You have a brain. Okay. You have a brain, and the brain is constantly trying to make sense out of this crazy universe. Right. And so you don't know. You don't know. And with all these religions, it's like I don't believe that we buy into some sort of truth per se, but we buy into this belief. It's like if you want to get together with other people who believe this thing and feel this certain way, and that's your trip, cool, that's your trip. I mean, people are living all kinds of different. You got the soldier trip, you got the holy man trip. And what's so amazing about this universe is you can play Hindu, F1, Texan, Raptor, married, like that's a trip. Right? It's its own trip. And from the outside, people they're going to come and look at you in all sorts of different ways, coming from their trip and where they're at, So it's I don't have an answer. There's no point to what I just said. And there's not even a question. It's just, just the inner workings of my brain.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and that's why, coming from India, this when I grew up and when I was, born and raised in India, there were times we would have frequent power cuts, unscheduled load shedding. We would sit in, in a candlelight and sit and study for our exams. We didn't even have a dining table until I think I was 10 or 11. We would all sit, on the floor, and we would all sit in a circle and we would eat. And, I've been in the United States for 5 years. Of course, having have the opportunity to study in good schools, that's obviously all thanks to my mom and dad, who sacrificed a huge amount, sending us kids to the best schools and colleges. And I had the opportunity to travel all over the world. When I came to the United States about 4.5, 5 years ago, obviously my life just completely changed. And my wife is from Louisiana. I have 3 religions in my family. My mom is Christian, my dad is Hindu, my brother is Muslim. And today I live in Texas. My in-laws live in Louisiana, in the South, and I'm in the solar industry, and I am. When it's so easy to forget where we are, and we don't look back and sort of reflect and see that, wow, what a journey that's been, and what a journey it's going to be from now on. And for me, I'm so grateful. And the reason why I do what I do with power and with solar is I haven't forgotten the days when our kids in our apartment building, we would go up to the terrace and we would be 2 candles and we would sit around the candle and we would study. The biggest investment that our kids, when we were in high school, every kid used to boast about was who got the best and the brightest emergency lamp, so that they could sit in the comfort of their home and study for exams and not have to sit with other kids in the apartment neighborhood and study with others. So that's where I come from. And when I do what I do, I'm very grateful for America. I'm very grateful for this country. It's given me this opportunity, and I'm able to use this platform, this opportunity, to help communities and people who don't have that sort of privileges or opportunities back home. And my dad back home is closely involved in a few nonprofits, and for me, it's about building that bridge. For me, it's about, no matter where I am, I'm immensely grateful for where divine or life or cause, whatever you want to call it, has brought me. And and wherever it's going to take me, I'm going to still be in that place of utter gratitude, and not make anything wrong that comes your way. Life is what life does, and life will come at you. And at all times, can I be strong and centered and stay in that place of deep reverence and awe and gratitude for this amazing gift.
Yeah, no, I love it. I personally can't. I'll be honest with you. One of the top things that all scientists, religious leaders, they're always like gratefuls, gratefuls, gratefuls. Literally, with my kids, every night we do a gratefuls. It's just like, so I know it on a deep, deep level that gratitude is the whole thing. But the way my mind works is it is just warfare. It's all out warfare. Like this brain right here, and I'm not alone in it. I mean, it is the second I think I have a stable footing, it's like not today. Oh, bam! Ah! And I just spiral. Like, do you ever? I like sometimes I'll get lost in like a thought, and then I'll wake up like 2 days later, and I was like, oh, I'm supposed to be grateful. Like just total whirlwind knocked off.
Yeah.
And it's just a tornado, man. And so the way that I'm in this moment, talk to me 10 minutes from now, I'll give you a totally different answer. But in this moment, it's just like I'm just trying to surf gracefully, and I'm constantly just biffing it into the splash of the universe and the space, because what's wild, and this is literally true, is that the sun is going 500,000 miles per hour, and we forget that. Like, we think of the sun as some sort of stationary object. She's flying. Okay, she's flying, and we just happen to be revolving around her, and it's revolving around the black hole at the center of the Milky Way galaxy, which is also moving incredibly fast. And so we're passing through some space. So even though we're sitting there, even when we sit there and meditate and just, we're just so serious about, I am a meditator, right? This entire thing, we are flying, like we are cruising through space. And sometimes I wonder if the thoughts, and this is a super far out, like ridiculous thing to even say, but sometimes I wonder if, like, as we smash into the space that we are now inhabiting, because we're now crossing through new parts of the cosmos, if the thoughts we're having are just reactions, like we're making contact with new space and it's hitting our brain in a certain way, and then flash, it like becomes a thought in our head because of the finest vibrational energies, because thoughts themselves are just incredibly fine energy. I'm just itty bitty. And I'm 100% with you on, it's all all matter is merely energy condensed into a slow vibration. That matter is neither created nor destroyed, so it can only vibrate at certain frequencies, and those frequencies that it happens to be vibrating at any specific time is also time, which is wild. So like if all the vibrations changed to exactly how they were in 1980, we would be in 1980. You know what I mean? Because even the people were like, well, it's 1980. And that's based on the vibrations of that particular time. So time itself is simply a pattern of those particular vibrations in that particular pattern.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I mean, if when you start galloping at those sorts of, putting things into that kind of a context, you would probably arrive at the question that, what is the purpose of life and what is this existence all about? And then we start to get into this existential crisis. And it can be very overwhelming, and it could be, it's sort of downplays, and it could lead to a sense of apathy as to what's the point of this life anyways, right? But again, when the beauty of it is not to analyze it. The beauty of it is to sit in wonderment in spite of all of that is, right? Because that's what the mind does, is to analyze and probe and dissect. But that's what the mind is meant to do. So people think that meditation means I'm supposed to sit and shut out my thoughts and completely. But what if that's not it? What if you were to sit in that place and observe those thoughts as puffy clouds on a clear blue sky? Your mind is a clear blue sky. Your thoughts are those puffy clouds which come and go and which take shapes and forms. So, I mean, also I want to be disclaimer, I am not an enlightened being. I am not some sort of a wise enlightened guru who's spent 10 years in the Himalayas.
But
I'm not
Ashwin,
that.
you have prayer beads and long hair and a beard, so clearly you meet the criteria
Well, just right there.
for
There you
a
go.
100%
Just by that,
enlightened being.
just by that visual definition, right? Just by that visual definition, I should be some sort of a guru.
Yeah.
But anyway, well, it's just that. But I am prone. I wear these prayer beads, yes, and tiger's eye. Tiger's eye is said to be said to symbolize courage and strength.
Mm.
But I'm also human. I'm also susceptible. I also go through those crazy human times and shout, scream, yell, and then I'm also capable of incredible love. But then, but that's the beauty in it, isn't it? To play and to participate and you know how experience all the vagaries of it. And as you said right at the beginning of our show, it teaches you something. It makes you look at life a certain way. It maybe teaches you fortitude that you thought you never had, or an innate tenacity to face life in some way that you never thought you did, and just makes you look at life differently. And
I love it. I mean, it's at this part of the show where people are like, isn't this supposed to be about marketing? You're supposed to have a show
I
about
know
business.
I had that question. I know, right? I had that question myself. I'm glad you brought it up.
You're like, wait a second. This is supposed to be about marketing. The reason why I focus on these things is I think that the vast majority of business owners understand that until you play in this space appropriately, even if you make a bunch of money, it's empty. It's empty. It's empty. Jeff Bezos is not the happiest person on the planet. You know what I mean? It's not, so we know that. So we know that there's not a one-to-one correlation between money and happiness. And so to me, if you are going to get popular, get a ton of clients, do really well, let's say you're super successful, you have 100 employees and they hate their jobs, right? The company culture's crap. It's toxic. There's no love. The foundation isn't love. You have an inability to extricate your soul from your body and go into the experience of another person and live their life and suffer as they suffer and understand it in a highly empathic way, then don't be successful. I don't even want you to be successful. Stop what you're doing immediately and get this right. Get this right first. And then you'll go, okay, you know what? I can make $250,000 a year, but I'm going to make 80. And I'm going to bonus the hell out of the people that are in my life. And I'm going to give them full autonomy, and I'm going to care about their feelings and who they are and how, I'm going to live in a way where I am not identified with this body. Because as long as it's the Kellen show and I should, sense gratification, it's all about me, then we're barking up the wrong tree as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, you talked about marketing, Kellen. I mean, what is marketing at the end of the day? Is it marketing? And yes, I've been in corporate, and as you talked about how companies, invest in the marketing team and they have all these fancy training and all that. But ultimately, what does it all boil down to? Doesn't it all boil down to authenticity and who, what are those values that are being communicated? I mean, is it just about the bottom line, or is it about really offering value? Is it about transformation? Is it about making a difference? And if that aspect is not woven into the whole marketing aspect, it's bound to be lost in translation. So what is that marketing at the end of the day? That marketing is, is it my own true voice that is shining through in those conversations I'm having with people? When I go to a networking event, when I'm part of my local chamber of commerce, when I go to the dinners, or when I participate in other professional network groups, I'm constantly talking to so many people, and you're constantly selling and you're marketing yourself. At every time, in every moment that you're having those conversations, I'm constantly checking in with myself. Am I being true to myself? Am I being authentic? Is this my, is this my, is it for my highest and best good? Is this going to add value to people? Is it going to make a difference to people's lives? And is this going to lead to collective transformation? I'm constantly checking in and having these conversations, because at the end of the day, if any of these is not a yes, what is it about then? You know, and that's why I think businesses need to get very, very clear. And that's why I'm proud to be part of the organization that I'm part of, because we walk the talk. It's about wanting to, our marketing buzzword is also the the code word for all of us as what we do as solar energy professionals, and that's what we carry. And most companies falter because sometimes it becomes about my bottom line, it's about profits, market share, new customers, acquisition, blah, blah, blah. We could go on and on and on. But in all those stages, in every one of those activities that an organization undertakes, is that common value and purpose and mission is being translated and passed on successfully. If it isn't, there's going to be a disconnect between the top level and your frontline customer facing staff.
Bingo. I want to make sure that you have a chance to let the folks know where they can reach you if there's someone listening now or in the future who wants to have a conversation with Ashwin. Where do they go? How do they reach you? Tell us.
Well, I do have a few links. I don't know if I shared it with Caroline just before this meeting. I have a few links to know for people to know about what we do, about power, who is power, why are we different than most solar companies, what is our ultimate purpose, and how can they get to experience how solar can actually save them money and put money back into their pockets and stay better prepared for grid outages and blackouts like we had in Texas in February, which really scared the living daylights out of people. So yeah, I have, those links are the best links where they could actually go and take a look at, or they could also go and look at Power, www.power.com. It's spelled with the U, POWUR. The U is a little bit of a play on the word. It's like the power is in your hands. So it's power.com. But
Got it.
yeah.
Links are in the description. And just as we mentioned earlier, there seems to be for many folks a disconnect between sort of these lofty spiritual, psychological, sociological goals and this capitalistic sales pitch that you get. But there's really not. There's not. That's Dharma 101. I mean, you got it. It's like there are people who sit there and meditate all day but don't know their zip code and don't pay their bills, and it's like that's one side of the story. And then there's people who like never think about it ever, and it's just like maximize the amount of money they make. And so it's like anything in this life, it's a balance, and we're all on an individual trip. But Ashwin, I've had a really good time. I really appreciate you swinging by the show. We would love to have you back if that's something that you'd be interested in doing. But ladies and gentlemen, you know the drill. 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. For marketing as a foreign language, youtube.com/send it rising. If you're like most folks listening to us after the fact on iTunes, Spotify, and the 12 other podcast platforms that we are on. We love you. We care about you. If you want to support the show, swing by youtube.com/send it rising. Hit the thumbs up button. Leave a comment for the algorithm. We'll see y'all next time.